you are, Lord. You are merciful to us, not because we deserve it, not even because we ask for it, or work for it, or earn it, or any of those things. You're merciful to us because that's who you are. We worship you, not because you require it, not because you demand it, but it's because you are someone worth worshipping. It is our natural reaction to all the goodness that you bring us, is to worship you. Lord, you know how your mercies have been working in our lives. I have seen your mercy. I have seen it will light the darkness. And that is who you are. We better stop there, otherwise I'm not going to make it. Thank you so much, worship team. Your song's been doing a work in my heart. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It feels too early for tears, but I guess I'll have to have a coffee next time. Welcome, everyone. I'm Fraser. Welcome. So welcome to Short Vineyard. I'm the children's pastor here, and one of the teams I lead is the children's team, and up to skite about how our team is the best, I'm inviting the beloved Kira. So if Kira, you want to come up? Yeah, give her a round of applause. She's awesome. Kira covered a lot while I was away, so she has been a little hero of mine and a hero to your kids. And we just wanted to, as a church, get a little bit of an insight into the kids' church team for you guys. And so Kira's going to ask some questions. Hopefully I don't go off script. But first off, Kira, how long have you been at Shore Vineyard?
So we've been here 5.5 years, interrupted a little bit by COVID. But we joined early 2020.
Long time. And I've been glad for every year of it. And you can see how much I trust Kara because I give her the microphone. That's the real mark of trust in this congregation. Right, what was the second question? Hopefully I can remember, otherwise I'll go off script. No, it was, what does kids' church look like, Kara? What is it like being part of kids' church?
So kids' church is where you get to have a lot of fun. So we leave the church when the sermon starts in the church, and we take the kids to the back, the red room, now the green room. We start off by playing a game with the kids, because they all come in there with lots of energy, and we play. There's various different types of games that we play with them, just to get them to burn off some energy, run around the room, and then we will tell them a story, and it's either a video or read a passage with the kids, ask some questions, something from the Bible. So I know that's where I learned a lot about the Bible was in Sunday school, so we'll take them through a passage, and then we do activity sheets, which the kids really enjoy. There's crosswords, where we get to look up verses in the Bible, or there's word searches, or colouring, because we've obviously got a range of ages, from sort of grade year 1 to year 6, so there's different activities for them to do, and we just get to chat to the kids and help them through that, and it's just, the kids really enjoy it, and I think they enjoy coming to church as well, and that's important.
Thank you, Kira. One of my favourite things is seeing kids who, at the start, they don't know how to look up a Bible verse at all, and then, a few weeks later, they are, doing multiple sheets, speed running them, looking through the Bible, finding verses themselves, and that's really awesome to see. So why should people join the kids' church team?
So I think investing in our kids is really important. Kids that now are starting school, starting to learn to read and write, but also letting them understand that coming to church is fun and it's enjoyable, but it's also about learning about Jesus and learning about it in a simple way where they won't necessarily obviously follow along in the sermon, but they get to learn Bible verses, they get to learn the different chapters of the Bible, they get to hear stories that they then remember going forward. So I think helping out in kids' church obviously helps all the parents here with their kids that can go to kids' church and learn about the Bible, but also it helps and invest in our kids, and as they grow, they've got that foundation. So if you want to join, it's really a rewarding and a very important part of our church community.
Thank you so much, Kira. Didn't you do great? Give her a round of applause. Thank you, Kira. So, yes, if you do want to join the team, please do come talk to me. What we can do is limited by the number of people we have, and you really see such a huge impact when kids get that one-on-one time that we can't do if there's just two of us. But every extra person makes such a big impact. And we are spinning up our Sparklers program as well. So if you want to be involved in even cuter, even smaller, even more fun children, come chat to me as well, because we need people who are expert finger painters, not very good finger painters. Turns out there's not that big of a difference, and things like that. So if you are interested, come chat to me. Cool. So awesome. Cool, we've got a couple other things coming up. So one is the final lunch. This is in roughly 2-3 weeks. September 14th, 2 weeks or 3 weeks? 2 weeks, okay. Thank you. People can do multiplications of 7. We have our final lunch after church, September 14th, Flavours of South Africa. And you know that community here is pretty strong, so I imagine it will be awesome as usual. And then we have the worship night on Sunday the 14th, which happens to be the same day. And that's in the evening. But that isn't here, that's in Doxa Deo Church. So jump on the website to see the address for that one in Unsworth Heights. Cool. As Kira said, it's so important to be investing in our children, and one of the ways that is happening is we have an intermediates live camp that's on October from the 10th to the 12th. Over my birthday, it's pretty cool. So that needs to be registered for so that they have you in a tent and not just in a bush. So chat to Carly, or you can register using that QR code, which I will leave up for an appropriate amount of time for you to scan. 3, 2, 1. Okay, cool. And if you missed that, you can catch this QR code really quick, or you can go to What's On at SVC to catch all the details and stay informed. Cool. If you are a giver here, you are so welcome. Thank you so much for doing so. It's one of those spiritual disciplines that you get better at the more you do, and you receive more from the more you do. Not in a prosperity gospel kind of way, but like in a spiritual enrichment kind of way. You get 33% back, but that's, in terms of return, it's not great, but we get what we can get. So thank you very much for being a giver. If you want to become a giver, you can do so on our website or by using the EFTPOS machine or the box at the back. We haven't had chocolate coins for a while, so if you could just, put those in the back, that'd be great. Okay, kids, you are out with myself, and if you're a little kid, you are invited to come eat all the snacks in the Sparklers room that I put in there, so please enjoy using that space today, and otherwise, I'll give it to this fellow who we haven't seen in a while.
So I think that's the cue for you to talk to each other, and I'm going to talk to our Facebook Live community, and I'll come back to talk to you in a few minutes. So stir your stumps. I hope that's been a refrain. Stir your stumps and talk to somebody around. Well, hello to our online community. It's 4 weeks since I've been here, which is a fairly long time. And I've been in Japan. Well, as you do, on holiday. I'll talk about that a little bit in my message today, so I won't bore you with it now. But this is the 31st of August, and I'm one of these strange people who measure seasons, a little bit grumpy that the last 2 months of winter are both 31-day months, July and August. But tomorrow is September the 1st, and I love it because it means the dark days of winter are over and the spring has begun. And so, happy spring, everybody. I think it's a wonderful thing. The other thing I was thinking about is a handful of us really, but a group of us really here in the church have been reading the Bible through in a year. And we're halfway through tomorrow. So 6 months, we started on April the 1st. Tomorrow is September the 1st, I think that's right. 6 months. And so we started with the HTB, Nicky Gumbel Alpha reading of the Bible. It's just been, I'm reminded again, I've read the Bible through, kind of in a year, many times over the years, but just what a wonderful thing it is to be part of a community that's reading the scriptures and to be in the scriptures. I remember Bob Fulton, who was sort of a luminary in the early Vineyard days, saying, when I read the Bible, God speaks to me, and when I don't read the Bible, he doesn't speak to me. I don't think he meant that literally, but it's like, as you read the scriptures, God speaks to you. And so, well, bless you. I just want to encourage you in your own scripture reading. If you don't have a rhythm, find a rhythm. If you want to contact me, you might like to jump on board for the next 6 months. Just let me know, and we'll add you to our little group that posts most days something that God might have said. So bless you on that. September the 1st tomorrow, new day, new start, spring begins. Not a bad time to be alive, I reckon. So God bless you on that. I'm going to pull this thing back. I'm going to get to speak to the lovely people here, and I'll get to speak to you at the same time. So God bless you. If I haven't seen you before, I haven't seen you for a few weeks, I know this. But if I haven't seen you before, my name's Vic, and I'm the pastor here at Short Vineyard, and it's a delight to be here together with you today. Welcome today. And this is my first time in the last 4 weeks, which I'll explain perhaps a little as we go. But it's always good to be, I've been away with family, and it's always good to be back with family. So it's lovely to be here today with the church family. We're in a series on the Gospel of Mark, and welcome in that sense to week 7, which has been continuing while I've been away, which we've called a fast-breaking news story sort of gospel, to sort of chimes in with my journalistic background. And we're digesting it week by week. And so, sort of if you sort of think, oh, we're on Mark again, well, every week is a new adventure as we get to the next week. And we're expecting in the process to be marked by Mark, we've sort of said at the beginning, what would an end goal be? But if we could be, and these are hard words, if we could be sealed, if we could be transformed, if we could be made whole, could we believe that God would do that? And so that's something of the heart behind being in Mark week by week by week by week. And so I want to thank Elisha and Jackie, who in the 3 weeks that I've been away have been preaching on Mark 4, 5 and 6. Great job. And then I get a lovely opportunity to be back and to pick up the theme as we go. I've been away with Fran and I've been in Japan. We have grandchildren who are in Japan. They're there for 8 months, and you don't leave your grandchildren. I'm finding we're sort of newbies really with grandkids. You don't leave your grandchildren behind for all that lot of time. So they're over there, so we had to go, didn't we? So it's a tough life. So this is Niwa on the right. He's 7 months old. He was born in January. And Asa on my shoulders. On the left, he's nearly 3, and so they're going to be staying until November, which is Asa's 3rd birthday, and then they'll be coming home, and that will be a wonderful time. So that's our story. Here's our little family. Our daughter-in-law, Aya, on the left there, she's a Nagasaki girl. She's a Japanese girl, and this is us. Actually, I was looking at this, and it's like there's nothing in there that would suggest that we're in Japan. So actually, we didn't go to Japan. This is at the Northcote Mall. And we gathered around, we took the photo and stuff like that, and then we sneaked back to Beach Haven so we didn't have to see any of you guys. That's actually what happened along the way. So there you go. But here I am back. I found my way back to Forest Hill. So we're in Nagasaki, which is not your tourist route, but Nagasaki is probably pretty famous for 3 things, one of which you will know. You probably don't know the other 3. So the one that you know is the bomb. Yeah. The 2 that maybe you might know more about Nagasaki than me, but there are a couple of things about Nagasaki that are, I think, really significant. One is that when Japan was a closed country, which was for an awful long time, they hadn't been open in one sense that long historically. Nagasaki was sort of like the route into the world. It's a port city on the bottom island of Kyushu. And so the trade would go sort of down through Japan to Nagasaki and from the rest of the world into Nagasaki. And they had this sort of special special area and zone that you could do business. And so that's sort of still represented a little bit in the city. The other thing about another thing about Nagasaki is that it's really the cradle of Christianity in Japan. So and it's the source of an awful lot of martyrdom and persecution that's taken place. But a lot of the Nagasaki images that you see around, you come into the airport and it's stained glass. So it's like, in a primarily Buddhist country, Christianity is sort of quite strong, at least in the reckoning. It's not like the church, I don't think, is sort of super thriving or anything like that. And this is the statue of the 26 martyrs who in 1597 were walked from Kyushu, from Kyoto to Nagasaki and executed on a hill that Fran and I stood on. As representative in terms of the story of literally hundreds of Christians who were killed during the couple of hundred years of persecution that took place there, and still hasn't, you wouldn't say that it's vibrantly come back in any way, but you sort of wonder what God's doing there, and I think it's a really significant thing. And then, so the third thing, the trade thing, the Christian thing, the third thing, of course, is the bomb. Which most of us know about. Hiroshima one couple of days, and then a couple of days later Nagasaki. And we, completely coincidentally, arrived there on the 8th of August, and on the 9th of August it was the 80th anniversary of the dropping of the atom bomb, which is pretty incredible. And this is actually sort of in part of their peace area, so this is taken on that day that we went to it, and the bomb went off right over the top of the cathedral. So, Christianity, in a sense, was wiped out along with the bomb at that point. And that pillar on the right-hand side, that brick pillar, is the last sort of pillar of the Cathedral of Nagasaki. And so it's just a pretty epic, sort of challenging, deeply challenging on a Christian basis and on an all sorts of things basis place to be. And so if you ever go to Japan, it's a great place to visit. It's possibly unlikely that you'll get to Nagasaki because there are sort of brighter lights elsewhere and stuff like that. But it is a fascinating place nevertheless. And so that's been our little story of the past time. And so I won't bore you with any more grandson photos or anything like that. But I thought it was a sort of a bit relevant, the whole Nagasaki thing. So again, coming back to the whole thing of being marked, we're going to be working in Mark chapter 7 today, and really want to encourage you to embrace this. Don't just kind of arrive at church next week not having read Mark chapter 8, because we'll be there next week. And you can do it as creatively as you like. You can watch the video that we're going to watch in a minute, or you can you can listen to it, or you can do an old-fashioned read of it. It only takes about 6 minutes. And kind of work, sort of as long as a worship song or something like that. And so it's something and worthwhile sort of being prompted in it. So we're going to watch from the Jesus Film Project this video. If you're watching online, either live or subsequently on our YouTube channel, the kind of connection will be there, the link will be there. And so we're going to watch. This is Mark chapter 7. And what I'd love you to do is just notice what you notice, and we'll have a little conversation around that. If anybody notices anything, we'll give the opportunity just to share for a minute after that. But this is Mark chapter 7, which you may have seen already or read already, or this may be for the first time. Just have a look at this.
The Pharisees and some of the teachers of the law who had come from Jerusalem gathered around Jesus and saw some of his disciples eating food with hands that were defiled, that is, unwashed. The Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they give their hands a ceremonial washing, holding to the tradition of the elders. When they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash. And they observe many other traditions, such as the washing of cups, pitchers, and kettles. So the Pharisees and teachers of the law asked Jesus, "Why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders, instead of eating their food with defiled hands?" He replied, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. As it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions. And he continued, you have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your own traditions. For Moses said, honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. But you say that if anyone declares that what might have been used to help their father or mother is korban, that is, devoted to God, then you no longer let them do anything for their father or mother. Thus you nullify the word of God by your tradition that you have handed down. And you do many things like that. Again, Jesus called the crowd to him and said, listen to me, everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them. After he had left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. Are you so dull? He asked. Don't you see that nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile them? For it doesn't go into their heart, but into their stomach, and then out of the body. In saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. He went on. What comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. Sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside and defile a person. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First let the children eat all they want, he told her. For it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed and the demon gone.
Mama.
Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon, down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged Jesus to place his hand on him. After he took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, Ephata, which means, be open. At this, the man's ears were opened. His tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone. But the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well. they said. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak.
Welcome to the, the confusing sometimes and occasionally confronting, sometimes even feeling contradictory, but always exhilarating world of the Gospels, of Jesus and the Gospel, Mark chapter 7. Anybody sort of see anything? We're not trying to, kind of this is what this means or anything, but anything sort of stir or anything you see in there that you particularly noted or noticed? It's always good to sort of hear the, kind of the heartbeat. Yeah. Anybody? Yeah, Vet.
Just know he was pretty mean to me. I used to, you still not get it. You never heard it. I used to go dull.
Yeah.
And they were just like sitting there just carrying on eating. You're like, they're from their own.
Probably that's
It
true.
was really so compelling that they didn't just like up and leave.
Yeah.
I think he must have done it in love.
Yeah. There's some uncomfortable images, at least. Sort of again, it's the interpretation, isn't it? But it's like, oh gosh, that would have been really hard. Of course, he's talking mainly about the hypocrites across the river at that point. But it's the the Syrophoenician woman. That's a really interesting little one later in the thing. So that uncomfortable thing. So, Pierre.
Yeah, I always struggle when he says, throwing bread to the dogs.
Bread to the dogs.
To the Gentiles or the pagans or whatever.
Yeah.
He say that.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. So it's a pretty. But the thing I love, to kind of go through the scriptures, you actually have to get to those things. It's much nicer to sort of preach earlier in that message in that chapter rather than have to be there for that. So, yeah, we'll talk about that a little. Anybody else notice anything? Yeah, Hattie. Don't tell him. But they always do, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great question. Yeah, why is he saying that? And it's probably pretty obvious they're going to tell somebody, It's like, well, all of a sudden I can speak. It's like, what did Jesus do? I can't say anything, I've just been healed. I'm actually not going to say it. So. Karen, do something? Yeah. Power went out of him. That was so interesting, The way that they portrayed that. We know that from the woman with the issue of blood. So, we know that may have happened. It doesn't say it in Mark 7, but there's a cost to it, isn't there, to Jesus? Yeah, I noticed that as well. Well, you're my favourite this side. Didn't you watch it on that screen? Didn't you notice, you guys? Nah. Even being objectionable doesn't create anything. Oh, that's lovely. It's great to have that feedback and thank you for it. And my hunch is the thing that you notice is probably the best thing for you, rather than the sermon and stuff like that, because I think, the story is clear. We've probably read it before or probably heard it before. But if you notice something, it's like, oh, yeah. Or if you notice Fraser today when he's praying, I think we can say it because we all saw, it's like there's an encounter of God happening here. And that's what we want to pursue, isn't it? So it's not like, man, I went and I read Mark 7 and I understand it. It's like I encountered Jesus in Mark 7 and my life has changed. That's the point. That's what we're trying to achieve today. So for me, because I had a little bit more, obviously, time in terms of preparation and stuff, sort of the whole idea of being clean and unclean was a really significant thing through that. I sort of see in there, and there may be more than that, but there's the unclean hands that they were using, there's the unclean food that they're talking about, there's the unclean hearts, the unclean spirit, and then the unclean peoples, kind of people groups, and the Syrophoenicians, in this case the Gentiles, that we talked about a little bit there. I also noticed this exercise that the Pharisees had of deliberately missing the point, or seemingly deliberately, justifying living one way to avoid living the right way. I kind of thought, man, that can go from the year dot to the year 2025 as a representation, as we sometimes live in a different way than we should. I also was taken with this thing of being a hypocrite, but it's like I was challenged by that. I think it's because, you can come up to me or say, that was the worst message on Mark 7 I have ever heard, and I'll be kind of hurt, but I'll know I've done my best. So it's like, obviously you've heard some really great preachers and stuff like that. Sort of, I won't be personally affected, although I'll be hurt. But if you come up to me afterwards and say, you're a hypocrite because you say this but you do that, I'll be enormously challenged by that, because I just know that that's an accusation like that would just be really hard for me. So that's something that I noticed in that sense. That hypocrite, the play acting thing, the wearing of the mask, sort of was where hypocrite comes from. So I'm going to leave the unclean hands and unclean food, although I'm going to relate to it just for a moment a little later. Mainly because it's probably not a really big deal for us, because we're not coming out of the Old Testament and we're not Jewish, most of us. But it was a really big deal for them. It's revisited in Acts. So it's like, it surprises me that Jesus sort of says, this pronounces all food clean, but in Acts they're still debating it. So that's a really interesting process to me. It's quite a big deal at one point in the book of Acts. But they do lead us towards something that I think is a big deal for us as it was for them, and that's the unclean or clean hearts that we might have. I think Mark 7, if we're serious about reading it with our hearts, will challenge us to examine the state of our hearts. How can it not? And so we come to verses 21 to 23, for it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. Sexual immorality, there's 12 things that are listed: theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance and folly. All these evils come from inside us, and defile a person. Or if you read it in the Message, it says, it's what comes out of a person that pollutes: obscenities, lusts, thefts, murders, adulteries, greed, depravity, deceptive dealings, carousing, mean looks, slander, arrogance, foolishness. And this is Eugene Peterson. All these are vomit from the heart. There is the source of your pollution, he's saying. So it's really strong. And we might sort of say, well, my heart is, that doesn't represent me. Well, I think we have to agree that sometimes it does, or it has done, or it probably will do in the future. We can't sort of read Mark and say, those people were terrible way back, and I'm so much better than that. We've got to know, I think, if we're honest, that all of those things, or some of those things, for sometimes are irrelevant to us. So washing your hands is good, clean hands, right? We know that because of hygiene, and we understand it today. The type of food that we eat is really important, isn't it? Because that produces healthy bodies. Not too many fried things, not too many salty things. I'm speaking to myself, because those are my predilections. But they aren't so relevant when it comes to purity of heart. And so the Old Testament purity laws of washing and food point to the real need of humans for a deeper purity, a purity, I guess, of motive, or we would say now a purity of heart. A clean heart is something that God is wanting to do in our lives. By focusing on the outward purity, the Pharisees are very good at that. They avoid the much deeper challenge of the gospel, which is the challenge to the human heart. And none of us can leave this place, kind of seriously today, without being challenged by that as a story. Jesus' basic point is that the purity laws, including the food laws, the ones that are being kept across the river, don't actually touch the real human problem. And that's what he's here for. He's here for cleansing and for changing. That's what conversion will do. That's what coming close to Jesus is going to do for us. That's what an encounter with God makes possible. That's what bowing the knee, that's what turning over our life to Jesus makes possible, a cleansing of the heart. That's where the kingdom of God advancing becomes a really big deal. I'm reminded here of the story in Samuel of the selection of the king, and that famous verse in 1 Samuel 16:7, which says the Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And the heart is a really important part of who and what we are. The Pharisees considered that they honoured God by doing the right things on the outside. And that's reasonably easy to do, the right things, sort of whatever is happening in community. And we all, in a sense, obey it. You're being incredibly obedient right at the moment to the rules of the game. The game at the moment is that you sit there and listen to me. Okay? And you're doing that so well. So outwardly, at least, not many of you are on phones today. I was like, kind of thank you for being on your best behaviour. And you're doing it. I'm doing my bit. I've prepared. Here I am. And before we were worshipping, weren't we? We were standing up and we probably sang most of the songs. We did the outward thing, but our heart may or may not have been engaged in that process, and it may or may not be being engaged in this process now. I often wonder about some of the excuses we make as part of everyday life. Have you ever heard somebody say this, or have you said this? I'm just a kind of a rough diamond sort of person. I call a spade as an excuse for the fact that I'm obnoxious with people. Or you just have to accept me the way I am, and I blow my stack from time to time as an excuse for my anger problem. Or I can't commit to that thing in 2 weeks' time. I'm a free spirit. As an excuse for our unwillingness to commit. Or, well, everyone else is doing it, so I guess it's okay. Or no one else is doing it, so I guess it's okay. Have you ever heard those things? They come from our hearts. And the question must be is, that may be indeed what we are, but is it what God's calling us to be? So is he invested in leaving us obnoxious, even though we are now? Or is he invested in leaving us angry, even though we are now? Is he invested in leaving us lacking commitment, even though we are now? No. We may well be that. That may be a statement of truth. But the washing of God is that at the end of the year, I'm less angry and I'm less obnoxious and I'm less commitment phobic or whatever it might be, the things that we are. Because the things that are going to take place in our heart. And so as a friend or as a spouse or as a son or daughter or a parent or whatever it might be, as a disciple of Jesus, the invitation is for us to grow. Almost like, and I know it's not like a works thing, but almost like, man, if I didn't know Jesus, my life would just be so different. I guess in a negative sense we could say. What if I run my life and my thoughts through a lens of sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly? Where do I end up? Where do I arrive at that? And is it something I can be proud of? Or is it something that, like the two disciples that they focused on, as Jesus was saying it, I kind of can't quite look in the camera? I think it was Matthew and Judas were the two that kind of focused on in that little bit. Is God pinpointing to me today from Mark 7 this week as I think about it, anything about purity or cleanness or things that he wants to become clean? So I think unclean hearts is a really important thing. We sang songs today about clean hearts, about growing in that whole thing. And then we move on from there and we talk about unclean spirits and unclean peoples. Just for a moment, when I last spoke, which was Mark 3, 4 weeks ago, we talked about the spirit world. I posed the question, so I'm not going to go there today, but when Jesus was around, demons manifested themselves all over the place. And posed the question, do we really, in a practical sense, think that the devil's real? We probably think that there's a devil because we do think that there's a God. But in practical sense, do we? Because we are products of a modern age of reason, and whether we like it or not, we're probably logical and rational thinkers. But if Jesus walked around and he was in our workplace or whatever, probably demons would cry out, and possibly in our own workplaces or our own lives or something like that, we could be seeing something that that is more than just the kind of the physical and the touch, because, that would tie in, I think, with who and what we are. But I spoke a little bit more about that last time. But then you get to the unclean peoples, and I'm uncomfortable too with the Syrophoenician woman. There are some things to work with in there. He's arrived in Tyre. It's a Gentile town. Mark is a gospel written primarily to Gentiles, so non-Jews. So there's sort of some sort of working with that. Jesus seemingly quite cold towards this woman. In fact, I think, and I think he is, to be honest. Commentators seem to agree that this is a circumstantial thing, that there's a one thing has to happen before another thing has to happen, another thing has to happen. So the Jews, for all sorts of reasons, are receiving the good news first, for all sorts of historical reasons, and the Gentiles are about to be brought in, and this dogs under the table, or the Gentiles were called dogs. And the sense of her knowing that, kind of even the crumbs from the table, the dogs are able to eat, and sort of Jesus agreeing with that in some sense. And we know, because we know the fuller story, that they would cease to be dogs and they would become children. This is part of the process that Jesus is going through. And yet I'm still left a little uncomfortable if I compare this story in Mark 7 with the woman at the well in John 4, where sort of the woman who was an adulterer is received with open arms in a sense. But, the older I get, the more comfortable I am with being able to say, I don't fully get that. But it doesn't deter me from the fact of Jesus. I can be grumpy with Jesus about that verse, whatever verse it was, and miss the point of the clean heart that Jesus might want to speak into my life. So, kind of unclean peoples, but we know that Jesus is in this process of bringing all towards him, including us, even us, which is just this incredible thing. Jesus does draw out from that woman, though, what's on her heart, which is an incredible thing, and we find that her heart is actually directed towards God in a way that the Pharisees were not directed towards God. John Calvin heralds her as a great example for us of uncynical and persevering faith. And I think that's a lovely place for us to end up if we can. And so that's my little journey to share today, this whole idea of clean or unclean. And that maybe you may have sort of heard something yourself that would be worthwhile and relevant for you to be working with during the week. But if you haven't, then maybe sort of thinking about this cleanness and unclean heart. Where would I stand? What would Jesus say to me? I love... I noticed the juxtaposition of the early part of that as the Pharisees are over the river and the disciples are there with him. And sort of the hypocrite thing was to the guys over the river, and the sense that, kind of there is a distance there. And it might be a challenge or an invitation for us to think about, was there a distance between me and Jesus? And to do something about it. Is to be warmed and melted in that process. What an incredible thing to do. A couple of closing thoughts, and then we'll pray for you if you'd like to be prayed for, and we'll come towards a close. But one of the thoughts is, let's not be hypocrites. Let's not be those people. Jesus attacks the Pharisees for using tradition to avoid obeying the word of God. I've got this thing, and even though it means I'm not going to honour my father and mother, which the Bible clearly says, I've got my traditions, so I've made something up around it. And he says, well, that's hypocritical for you to do that. And so let's not be hypocrites. Fran and I have been watching sort of an expose series on sort of one of the big mega churches and stuff, and some of the things that sort of go on or went on behind the scenes, and some of the blow-up that happened as a result of that. And it's like, man, these things are hypocritical, If we're preaching love and we're abusing over here, if we're preaching, purity and we're immoral over here, all of those sorts of things, it's nothing but hypocritical. Let's not be those people. Let's not be that church, but let's not be those people. I think is really important for us to, kind of just be aware of. And then finally, a thought of getting away from the crowd. That final story of the healing of the man who couldn't hear and speak which I haven't so much spoken about, but came up in your observations. In verse 33 it says, after he took him aside, away from the crowd. I reckon that's really significant, really important, to allow Jesus to take us aside, away from the crowd. And it says, and Jesus said to the man, epaphra, which means to be opened. So it's like away from the crowd, there is the opportunity to be connected with Jesus in a way that will be life-changing, heart-mending, wrenching maybe, in a way that might be quite difficult for us in lots of ways. Jesus not only opens his ears, or opens our ears or mouth, but releases or opens our being. That's what he's inviting us to do, open our heart. Change our heart, our mind, our emotions, our, kind of opens our finances, all of the things that Jesus wants to do. And it's actually really hard when you're being, kind of confirmed by those around that why don't we just do nothing? But when Jesus is inviting us forward in some way, that's the opportunity for us to be connecting with who and what he is. And so those are my thoughts on Mark chapter 7, and next week we will move into Mark chapter 8, which starts with the feeding of the 4,000 and moves on from there, and I look forward to being with you for that. But could I ask you to stand, and Carrie and the worship team are going to come back, and we just want to give an opportunity to reflect for a few moments, and we'll be switching off our online now, or around about now. And so bless you in the online community, and whether during the week or whether you are live with us now, just bless you. Whatever God is doing in your life, we bless that, and we expect it. Amen. So we're going to sing the Kyrie song, which Sandy so beautifully introduced before. Sort of, Lord have mercy. Christ have mercy. It was the sinner's prayer, kind of in the Gospels. It's a beautiful way of doing it. But I want to invite you towards him today. What an opportunity. Oh, like no other. Last day of winter. Oh, I love that day. Spring tomorrow, it's going to be all different. And on the last day of winter, I encountered Jesus in my heart. Oh, what a piece of magic that could be. And I felt like God said, we sang Waymaker, even when I can't see it, he's working. And I feel like there are people here today who can't see it. And I feel like that's the word of God to you. Even when you can't see it, he is working. So you may have enjoyed the, rhythm of a song like that or a line like that, but that's a word for you today, I believe, anyway. So we'll start with it, Carrie, and I'll sort of jump in and invite people for ministry and stuff. So if we can do that, that'd be great. Let's draw close. It's not just a closing song.